The grand Rosevale estate buzzed with elegance. Crystal chandeliers shimmered overhead, white roses lined the marble pathways, and champagne flowed like water. It was one of the most anticipated weddings of the year, the kind that gathered socialites, politicians, and CEOs like moths to a flame. And yet, among all the glitz and glamour, Clara Evans stood silently near the garden's edge, wearing a plain peach dress she'd worn 3 times before. Her hair was pinned back simply, her hands nervously clutching a small second-hand purse, and her eyes wide with quiet discomfort. She didn't belong here. At least, that's what everyone seemed to think. They didn't know Clara. They didn't know she was kind, intelligent, and carried a heart that had weathered more storms than most could imagine. They only saw what she looked like, modest, unsure, and clearly out of place. She had received the anonymous invitation just 3 days ago. You are cordially invited to the Harrington Whitmore wedding at Rosevale Estate. You deserve to be seen. Saturday, 4 p.m. There had been no signature. But something deep in Clara's chest stirred when she read it. And so, despite her hesitation, she decided to go. She took the bus. She walked the final half-mile when it broke down. She fixed her lipstick using the side-view mirror of a stranger's parked car. And as she stepped through the wrought iron gates into the rose-filled courtyard, she did so with one quiet hope, that whoever had invited her had done so for a reason. But that hope dimmed quickly. Whispers followed her like shadows. Who let the help in? She must be someone's distant cousin, or charity case. Why would she even wear that to a wedding? Clara kept her head down. And then came Vanessa Thorne. Vanessa had always been beautiful in the way that diamonds were, sharp, glittering, and cold to the touch. She was the bride's closest friend and a woman who never missed a moment to make others feel small. She approached Clara with a smirk painted across her flawless face. "Oh no, sweetheart," Vanessa said loud enough for others to hear. "Are you lost? Or did someone donate you a ticket to this wedding through a shelter?" A few guests laughed. Clara opened her mouth but closed it again. Vanessa leaned in closer, her voice sharper now. "You're pathetic. Walking in here like you belong. Like anyone here would even look at you." And with that, she lifted her hand, and slapped Clara across the face. The sound cracked through the courtyard like a gunshot. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Clara's face burned. Not just from the slap, but from the heat of humiliation. Her eyes welled, but she held them back. She refused to give Vanessa the satisfaction. She turned to leave. But just as her heel touched the stone path behind her, a voice rang out. "Vanessa." It was deep, commanding, unmistakably furious. All eyes turned. From the grand staircase leading down into the garden, Daniel Harrington stood tall, his tailored suit perfect, his jaw tight with rage. But his eyes, they were only on Clara. The world knew Daniel as the billionaire founder of a global tech company, a man who had graced magazine covers, sat with presidents, and dated supermodels. No one ever questioned him. But now, he looked ready to destroy someone. He descended the stairs in long strides, the crowd parting as he passed. When he reached Clara, he gently touched the side of her face, the one Vanessa had struck, and whispered, "Are you okay?" Clara, stunned and breathless, nodded. "Daniel?" she asked, barely above a whisper. What are you doing here?" Daniel turned slowly toward the crowd, never letting go of Clara's hand. "She's not a mistake," he began, his voice clear and resolute. "She's not a servant. She's not someone who wandered in. This woman, this remarkable, selfless, compassionate woman, is my wife." Silence fell. It was as if the entire garden had been frozen in time. Gasps. Murmurs. A champagne glass shattered somewhere in the back. Even the bride looked stunned. Clara blinked, still trembling. "You said we would keep it quiet." Daniel nodded. We did. Because I wanted to protect you from people like this. But today, I realized something: you don't need protection. They need education. He turned back to Vanessa. You slapped the woman who once gave her last $100 to help a sick child get to the hospital. The woman who sat beside my mother during her final days while I was across the world in meetings. You called pathetic the woman who made me realize that life isn't about empires or headlines, it's about heart. Vanessa's face was pale. Clara's heart pounded so loudly, she thought everyone could hear it. The words, "wife, my wife," echoed inside her. She hadn't wanted the spotlight. But now, standing beside Daniel, her hands trembling in his, she felt something shift. Pride. I married her 2 years ago, Daniel continued, addressing the entire crowd. No photographers. No tabloids. Just a quiet city hall and 2 rings made of nothing more than love. Because I didn't need the world's approval to know she was the best thing that ever happened to me. Clara's eyes filled with tears, but not from pain this time. People in the crowd began to murmur again. But the tone had changed. Sympathy. Shame. And then, applause. It started with one of the waiters. Then the bride's younger brother. Then dozens of guests. Vanessa shrank away, disappearing into the crowd. That night, the wedding went on, but something was different. Clara was no longer invisible. She was radiant. The bride herself came to apologize, holding Clara's hand. I didn't know, but now I see. He smiles differently when he talks about you. He lives differently. The older guests praised her humility. The younger ones asked her about life before Daniel. And the press, who had been waiting outside the gates, now had the story of the year. But Clara? She just wanted to go home. Later, in their quiet car ride back to their little house outside the city, Daniel held her hand the entire time. You changed me, he said softly. I used to walk into rooms and measure my worth by who noticed. You walk into a room and worry who needs help. Clara smiled through tears. I never wanted attention. I just wanted to matter. You mattered to me, he whispered. From the very first day. That night, Clara stood by their kitchen window, looking out at the moonlight on the grass, and finally allowed herself to breathe. She was no longer the girl who blended into walls. She was a woman who had endured humiliation with grace. A woman who had loved quietly, and been loved loudly. A woman whose worth had never come from wealth, but from her unwavering ability to remain kind. Even in the face of cruelty. Epilogue. Months later, Vanessa tried to redeem her reputation. But social media had already turned Clara into a quiet icon. Not a celebrity. Not a public figure. Just someone who reminded the world that dignity, kindness, and resilience matter more than appearances. The story of The Billionaire's Hidden Wife became a best-selling memoir. But Clara didn't care about the fame. She kept waitressing part-time. She continued tutoring the landlord's daughter. And she still watered the garden herself every morning. And every now and then, someone would walk up to her and say, "You changed how I see people." And that, more than the diamonds, more than the headlines, more than the marriage certificate, made it all worth it. True wealth isn't defined by the money you hold, but by the heart you carry. In a world that judges too quickly and loves too little, may we all strive to be like Clara, quietly strong, endlessly kind, and unshakably dignified.